really happy that there are so many people to this workshop here. The workshop called Unpack Your Story with Dyane Neiman and Mohl. Who are they? Some of you may know them, some not. So I will give you a short introduction. Who will be here? Dyane and Bob are collaborating already for over 6 years. Bob is from Paris and Dyane from Berlin. So both districts are on the stage today. And both are experts in turning your personal, true and life experience into inspiring stories. Dyane already started a couple of years ago an open stage in Berlin called The Bear, where everybody is allowed to speak for 5 to 7 minutes, as we know. Bob has a regular program. It's called The Mohl, the Moth, in Paris, for also a couple of years. Dyane is in her 3rd season right now. And I was one of the first 3 years ago on the stage with the personal stories I had to tell. Okay, let us invite, welcome. Well, I'm really sorry about that. I'm still inviting. Let us welcome on the stage Dyane Neiman and Bob Mohl to Unpack Your Story.
Oh, there's people here.
Yeah.
This is the beginning, and it's the end. It's the beginning of our workshop, and it's the end of your conference. Have you had a good conference?
Yes.
How have the last 2 days been? You hear a lot of speeches, hear a lot of stories. You remember those stories? I bet you most of them were, the speeches you remember were the ones with the stories. Now, why do we like stories so much? Reminds of childhood? Relatable? Emotions. Bring out the emotions. Pictures allow you to paint pictures.
Curiosity.
You know what? I think these things are all right. What I really like about stories also is they are easy to remember. And not just for the audience, but for you when you're speaking. Has anybody ever had the experience of giving a speech and forgetting what to say next?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody? So, basically almost nobody. Have you ever told a story and forgotten what happens next? It can happen, but it is much, much less likely. Now, why is it, Dyane, that we remember stories so well?
So stories have a natural thread, right? It's like a chain. Each link leads to the next. And stories are also the most powerful way to move people to action. If you want to inspire and motivate people to consider an idea, to buy something, to change a behavior, use stories. Facts and figures tell, but stories with their emotional appeal sell. And the brain has figured this out, that it's the most effective way to take all the chaos of life, all this incoming information that's bombarding it, and putting story structure on top of it to find structure and meaning. So today, you're going to learn some tools to take your storytelling skills one notch up. We're going to do a story building exercise, and at the end, you're going to see how to tell a world champion level story. We promise. So, Bob, take out the story chart.
This chart?
They're the small cards that we're going to give out afterwards.
The big chart. Well, you don't need that.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Listen to this. I'm not sure
Bob,
it's in here.
that is sure not. That is not a story chart.
Well,
I put it in the front compartment. I know it's there. No.
I don't know, but it's,
You just showed my panties to 100 people. I don't believe it.
well, I did that for Olivia, but
Bob, please stop. Because I have no idea what you're going to pull out of that suitcase. Bob.
yeah, well, I mean, there's only this left.
You are embarrassing me. Without the visual aid, I cannot explain the story essentials.
Diane, look, you're the one. You told me you can turn anything into a story. I'm sure you can do it.
With no visual aid, you're wrong. You are wrong, Bob.
No, I'm not. I am sure you can do it. Come on, you'll figure out something.
Okay. Maybe this could work. So, we're going to start with a story arc. It's the foundation of a compelling story. And because we're limited for time, we're going to concentrate on 4 essential elements. The first element you need is one main character. And this character wants something. In our story, I wanted the story chart, which leads to the next element, conflict. No story if you have no conflict. So my conflict was Bob. He wasn't giving me what I wanted. And better yet is when your conflict escalates. It gets more and more, in this case, embarrassing. Until it climaxes when Bob says to me,
You can turn anything into a story. I know you can do it, and you're doing it.
and then the character changes. I had this aha moment. Maybe this could work. Maybe I can take my problems and make them my solutions. And the story resolves to its message, which is, take your struggles and make them your stories. So story arc is a structure that takes a character through. This structure is universal. You can use it in any country, any language, any gender, any age. It's universal.
There you have it.
Okay.
I think it might be a good idea to get all of these items off the stage, maybe. Well, I'll explain what we're going to do today. Next is we'll have an activity. And in this activity, we want you to be able to build your own stories. It's going to take part in 3 phases. First, you're going to think about some incidents, something that you can turn into a story, and then you will try and unpack that and figure out the elements and share them with a partner. And then finally, some unlucky few will get to come up on stage, hot seat, tell their story, and we'll try and give some feedback. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Everybody ready? So you can do this now individually. Work on paper or just do it in your mind. But think of some personal incident in your life. If it involves a struggle, that would be good. It can be something back in your childhood. It can be something as recent as the gala dinner last night, if you can still remember that. Maybe something to do with rebirth or renewal. So we'll give you just a moment. Come up with an incident, an event that you think you can turn into a story. We'll give you a little second to think about it. Now, think about who is the character, how would you describe the character, and very importantly, what is their desire?
There's only one character because the brain has a hard time putting itself in different people's shoes. It's very important that you have one main character.
Now, is this character going to be in a struggle with a conflict that interferes with the character achieving their desire? Really important to have conflict.
Your conflict can be external, like a car crash, but it can also be internal, self-doubt. And you can show internal conflict with monologues.
And what you really want to do is find a way to escalate the conflict. Make the stakes get higher, make the problems get harder. So think about if you can take the story that you're working on and add those elements. Now, of course, the conflicts have to escalate and culminate in a climax. And we're not really talking about yesterday's workshop, so, we're on a different level here. Just a normal peak event, a turning point in your story. Now, does that lead to a change in the character?
An aha moment where the character has a new perspective, a new insight.
The audience is going to feel much more powerful impact if the main character goes through some kind of change. Some stories, character doesn't change that much. You'll find that the connection with the audience is much less. Raise your hand if you think you've got most of these elements kind of together for a story. Okay, that's good. I'll give you just a few more seconds here to think about it. So now we want you to partner up, turn to a neighbor, and you are not going to tell the whole story. You're just going to unpack the story. And unpack it by using one sentence to explain what is the character and the desire. One sentence to tell what is the conflict, and then what is the climax, and what is the change. You just want to get these elements out there. So you turn to a partner and share, and then we'll switch, and the other person will share. Well, that would make 4 sentences. Okay? You can put a comma in there, you can put in a semicolon, but no run-on sentences, okay? person telling the story. If the other person hasn't told the story, or here's what we're going to do. We're going to look for some volunteers. Why don't you go ahead?
Someone already volunteered. Oh, sweet. Okay. What's your name? Katerina is going to tell us a very short story. We're not doing sentences. We're telling Bob, right? We're going to tell a story. But the evil Bob will cut you off because we want to get a lot of people up here. Katerina.
I'm Katerina, and at the beginning of the year in January, I wanted to become an area director next year to get to the next level in Toastmasters. So I told everyone I was going to be an area director. But then people around me started to see me as the next area director. But I started not to see myself as the next area director. I was thinking of all the things I was going to give up for the time I would spend in that role after years always having roles in Toastmasters. And that was bad because all these other people around me, they were really sure I was going to do that. And that was a promise I had made. I felt a commitment in that. But then one day I was talking with one of my friends, sitting there by the way, the one who volunteered for me for this. And he was saying my struggle, and he told me, like, you're doing something that other people want you to do, but do you really want to do it? You're going to do it badly if you're not sure that you want to do that. And at that moment, it was the moment when I decided to withdraw my candidacy. So from becoming the area director to not become the area director, and in my opinion being a big disappointment from all the people around me, but honestly it was not really that. Everyone was very supportive, so I realized that really people are not forcing you to do stuff if you don't feel like doing that. They see what you feel and they accept your decision, and now I'm very happy not to be the next area director.
A quick question for you. What was your conflict in that story?
My real conflict was between my expectations and what I expected from people around me.
Exactly. And that's what Dyane was talking about when he said the conflict can be internal. Right, so that was an internal conflict. Thank you very much.
Oh, Katerina! We have something for you.
Oh,
Because another message we want to give all to you is start a story journal. The pages are empty. Every time something happens, write down the dialogue, what he looked like, what his name was, all the details, because years later when you want to tell the story, you forget. So.
So we're going to try and give a little bit of feedback, and the first thing I want to say is the answer isn't always at the front of the room, it's in the room. I mean, we have district champions in the room. We have at least 2 people here tonight who won in their categories. So anybody else who has a comment for the last story is welcome to share that. I would just say a couple of things. I'd say number one, she not only did pretty much followed the 4 elements that we had here, she actually had a message at the end. The one additional thing I might suggest that she could have done is to explain or tell the story with a little bit more dialogue. So she was going through all these dilemmas, and if she had kind of done it through the voice, internal voice, and also the dialogue with some of her other people, that might have made it come alive a little bit more.
I want to add something too. The higher the stakes are, the more it really means for you to get this, the more we get involved. So raise your stakes when you're talking about desire.
So how did she do that? Well, she came out, which we kind of said, do this. What is the character? What is their desire? She wanted to be area director, but she didn't say why she wanted to become area director. So if she had kind of set that up a little bit more about how important that was to her, then we would have been more invested in the struggle. Who is our next victim? I did recognize.
Ooh, yeah, let you choose this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, yeah? Please. She had her hand up at the plate.
My name is Cécile Bastien Rémy. I'm French and I live in Switzerland. I'm a mom, I'm an employee, I'm an entrepreneur, and the precious thing for me is time. Time to be able to allocate time to be able to be everything. Now, I'm in a situation I was last year where I was working 100%, yet I had this very strong desire to set up my own business. So I needed to free time. And to do that, I had to negotiate with my boss and ask him to reduce my time down to 80% only instead of 100% for my work contract. My company is getting more and more clients, and I'm working a support capacity. That means that you need to have people, you need to have actually people supporting them. More clients, less resources, more complicated project. My boss is not around.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let me just try and do this. You have spent a fair amount of time getting us the setup, and you start off saying you're a mom and you have the problems with time, etc. What happens if you start right away with what your project is, what you want to do, and then start going into the problem is I don't have enough time, the problem is my boss wants this, the problem is I have to, so that we get into we understand the conflict in terms of it interfering with what your desire is. And you don't have to say desire. It's...
So the objective, the conflict would be actually the finding...
the things that are keeping you from realizing, from achieving your desire.
So I'm really scared that my boss is going to say no if I'm going to ask for 80%. Would that be the conflict?
Well, I would say start at the very beginning. Start with go to the desire, what it is that your goal is, and then right away let's see conflict.
All right. My goal is to reduce my work contract to 80% to enable more time to set up my business. The difficulty that I am facing is trying to negotiate with my boss because the situation in the company is very tense, lack of resources, more clients. So I know that the setup is this way, and I am trying to understand to which angle I can convince my boss to allow me to work 80%. And I'm making all the list. And I'm really wondering how am I going to be able to convince him. I'm trying to look at the angles. I really don't see anything, in favor of the company for him to say yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop because we're going to go through a lot of people, as many as we can, and try and see. My feeling, and I welcome anybody else's comment on this, is that first of all, having a goal of reducing your workload from 100% or whatever to 80% is not a big. There's going to be some conflict, but it's not a big enough thing that the audience cares about. The point is you want to set up your own project.
Yeah.
So that's a much bigger thing. And then it seems to me that you kind of explained why you want to do this, but to do this. And now, the first thing is I have to reduce my workload. I'm a mom. I have all this time constraints, and not going through all the analysis of what the company's policies are, etc. But just get right into the confrontation with your boss. Terrible for me to say it because I'm always in my head kind of analyzing stuff, but we don't want to really hear about the analysis. We want to hear about the struggle, I think.
All right.
Does this make sense to people? People agree? Any other comments? How would I have done it? I wouldn't have had the children to begin with, so that's a terrible thing to say.
I think, too, you could have a better catch. The first sentence you say, you should get people's attention right away, just like a good speech. It starts right into action. First sentence is...
Something about the fact, about her project. I have this dream project. Pardon?
Go ahead, Bob.
I have a dream project, okay? I want to follow... Sorry.
You put him on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I want to create my own business. This is my dream, and to do that, I need to find more time. Something like that. But explain I'd maybe even explain a little bit what the project is, but also have a hook. Have some hook that gets the audience's attention. We're ready for another volunteer.
Well, you didn't look at the time.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. Think so? Oh, gosh.
No,
you all have to come to the bear. All these people who tell stories.
Let's see, we haven't had
a male
We have to have a man.
And Florian's pointing.
He's pointing to Mr. right there, Mr. Kling.
My name's Jeroen from the Netherlands, and a couple of months ago I saw my dream job in a vacancy. Here, all my ambitions, all my experience came together. I wanted to land that job. So I studied everything there was to know about the organization I was going to work for. It became mine. At the exclusion of everything else. I became a very asocial person because all the time I devoted to study, to get to know this organization. And a couple of weeks later, I was actually invited for a job interview. I went to Turkey, where this job was located, and I saw that there were more people invited. We had to kill one another, as it were. It was a concours. So I spoke to them, was friendly, making an assessment about the competition, and we had to show to the direction of this company who was the best. Well, I gave it all. I was committed, I was knowledgeable, and I was even friendly to the other competition to show that, well, I could be a good colleague. And I went back to Holland and very happy with myself. Then, a week later, I got an email, it's not you. and I was devastated because I had invested everything in this job. But then I discovered that actually the people around me, my family, started to like me better because I had been so focused on that job, on the preparation, that I had no time to meet them, I had no time to spend time with them. I became a not very likable man. Now I let go of that ambition and, well, people seem to like me again. So that is the transition I went through. That, in all modesty, I'm more likable at the moment.
Jerome, yeah, this is for you. Good start ready. One thing that I think is important to point out here is when you're telling a story, to be specific. So you said, for example, I became asocial. Give examples. It was our golden anniversary and I told my wife, no, I have to stay home and study. Or you said, I helped my colleagues. I even babysat 3 kids on a Saturday night. It makes it more, we have a picture in our mind. It's different than just saying, I helped my colleagues. Use dialogue, use really specific examples to get the film rolling in our imagination. Thank you, Jerome.
The other thing I found interesting about this is when you have Toastmasters, we don't have message on there. It's one of the elements that you can have is message or call to action. And all of you are coming up pretty much with ending with a message, which is good. That's good Toastmasters story time. The only other comment I could make is I think you could have started with a real hook, like I had to be friendly to my competition, but I also had to kill them. Or something that, and then go into, what the actual story was leading to. The other thing is, we really want somehow, as this thing builds up and you get to the climax in this story was kind of like, well, I got a phone call and I didn't get the job. But somehow make the climax be the thing that's the turning point that leads to the change. Somehow, either in this case, I wanted this job, I wanted to get it, and then what changed was my desire. It wasn't that something changed that allowed me to achieve my goal, but the desire changed, and that's what allowed me to complete that arc. Is that it?
Yes.
So we're done?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, no,
we promised something. What did we promise?
We promised something.
Sorry.
We promised to show you show you how to tell a fantastic story. And so to do that, we're going to turn to a master storyteller. And while you watch this person tell a story, forget about the politics. You may recognize him. But think about those elements that we have just talked about. Think about the character, desire, the conflict, the escalation, the climax, and change. In this case, you can also maybe think about the message.
This is early in the campaign when none of you knew how to pronounce my name. And I was sitting next to a state representative there, and I wanted her support. I needed some endorsements. Nobody supported me at the time. So I said, Madam Representative, I need your endorsement. She said, I will give you my endorsement if you come to my hometown, Greenwood, South Carolina. And I said, I had a glass of wine. I said, fine. I'm coming. Come to find out that Greenwood is an hour and a half from every place else. It's in the middle of nowhere. So, about a month later, I fly back into Greenville, and I'm tired, I'm sleepy. And I've been campaigning for 2 weeks straight. I'm dragging my bags to my hotel room, and suddenly I get a tap on my shoulder. It's my staff person. I said, what? They said, we've got to be in the car at 6:30 tomorrow morning. I said, what? 6:30, why? Because we've got to go to Greenwood like you promised. So the next morning, I wake up and I feel terrible. dragging on a bit. Feel like a college student. So I just feel I'm exhausted. I go over to the curtains to try to get some sunlight, wake myself up. It's pouring down rain outside. Miserable day. I go to get some coffee, I open up the newspaper, there's a bad story about me in the New York Times. I go downstairs, and my umbrella busts open, and I get poured on. So by the time I'm in the car, I'm wet, and I'm sleepy, and I'm tired, and I'm mad. And we start driving, and we're driving, it's an hour and a half, and I realize I'm going to have to drive an hour and a half back. And finally we get to Greenwood, although you don't know you're in Greenwood right away. But there's a little park district building. We go into this park, field house, I get a little more wet. Get inside, and after this long drive, waking up 6:30, there are only about 20 people. 20 people. And they're all kind of damp, and they don't look that excited to see me. They don't really know how to pronounce my name either. But I'm running for president, so I'm shaking hands. How do you do? Nice to meet you. Suddenly, I hear this voice behind me shout, "Fire up!" And I'm startled. But everybody around me, they just think this is normal. They say, "Fired up." And suddenly, I hear this voice, "Ready to go!" And everybody goes, "Ready to go?" I said, "What's going on?" I look behind me. There's this small woman. She's about 5 feet, 5'2". She's about 50, 60 years old, and she's dressed like she just came from church. She's got a big church hat, and she's looking at me. She's smiling. She says, "Fire up!" Come to find out that this is a city council member from Greenwood. She also, by the way, moonlights as a private detective. True story. True story. But she's mainly known for her chant. She does this everywhere she goes. Everywhere at any event, football game, at a city council meeting, she says, "Fired up!" And everybody says, "Fired up!" I'm ready to go. Everybody says, "Ready to go." So for the next 5 minutes, she keeps on doing this. She says, "Fired up, ready to go, ready to go." And I realize I'm being upstaged. Honestly. So I'm looking at my staff asking, what's going on here? When is this going to stop? And they're shrugging their shoulders. They don't know. But here's the thing, Marilyn. After about a couple minutes of this, suddenly I realized I'm feeling kind of fired up. So I started joining in the chant. And for the rest of the day, wherever we went, whenever I saw my staff, I said, "Are you fired up?" They say, "I'm fired up, boss." "Are you ready to go?" They say, "I'm ready to go." So it goes to show you, and this is so important for young people, it goes to show you one voice can change your world. And if a voice can change your world, it can change a city. And if it can change a city, it can change a state.
I think he's ready to compete at the World Championships. It's very American. We don't have a lot of time left, so I want to just quickly go through, unpack that speech, and look at those special moments in it that kind of correspond to our story arc. So first of all, we have a character, and this character has a desire.
Madam Representative, I need your endorsement.
Okay? Now, he has an inciting incident. He has an incident in his story that launches the rest of the progression. And that is,
She said, I will give you my endorsement if
can we have a little louder?
you come to my hometown, Greenwood, South Carolina.
That's what sets everything off. Now he has his desire. He's got this incident that's going to either make or break whether he gets the endorsement. Does he have conflict? A lot of conflict. Lots of things going on. He escalates it like crazy.
By the time I'm in the car, I'm wet, and I'm sleepy, and I'm tired, and I'm mad. And we start driving, and we're driving, it's an hour and a half. And I realize I'm going to have to drive an hour and a half back.
Where and how is the climax of this story? Where and how does it happen?
Only 20 people there.
Only 20 people.
When he realizes he's fired up.
When he's upstage, church woman. Okay, that to me is a climax of the story because that's conflict, and now he's got the worst conflict of all. It's his room. There's only 20 people there, and he can't even take charge of the room. So someone else is upstage.
She says, fired up, ready to go. And I realize I'm being upstaged. On this one.
But what is the change? Somebody here mentioned it. It's when Obama now reacts to this situation he's in, and all of a sudden,
After about a couple minutes of this, suddenly I realize I'm feeling kind of fired up.
and then he has a message which we're not going to play the whole thing.
One voice can change your room.
Goosebumps moments. There are 2 goosebump moments. Where are they? Where you just...
Anybody have goosebumps at any point in there?
Yeah, when your voice changes.
One voice changes.
Voice can change.
That's
We raise
definitely
the stage, one voice, one room, one city, one nation.
Go ahead, sir.
So when the character changes, he says, I'm starting to feel fired up. That's the moment where he has this change of perspective. And there's a second place goosebump moment, which you said.
When he raises the stage, one man, one voice,
Exactly.
one room, one town, one country.
And you can see that by the reaction of the audience. You get a huge applause at that point. Okay, it's American speech, American audience, etc. Do you have a comment, question?
I had a moment when I saw it was it.
See, normally when you give your speech, you're going to have some kind of hook to get the audience in, and you're going to have some kind of setup. He didn't really need a lot of that, right? As soon as you see it, then he's like his own hook. So that it makes it easier for him than it does for most of us, unless you're, John Zimmer or Alan Pitio.
He can do that, right, because he's the president.
Yeah.
None of us have experiences like that, right? That you go to a meeting you don't want to go to, with other people who don't want to be there, and the meeting goes from bad to worse. It's never happened to us, right? Of course, we've all had similar struggles. And that's the art of storytelling, to take everyday experiences, unpack them, find the story arc, what changes the character as he goes through struggle. Find that. So he takes his struggle and makes it into a story.
And that's what you can do. You can turn your struggles
Into stories. Embrace your struggles.
Now, as you leave this room today, and as you leave this conference, remember one voice, your voice,
Can change a room.
Thank you, Dyane. Thank you, Bob. It was real great. And even so, I'm Toastmaster for over 9 years. I learned a lot.
Good.
Really. I was thinking about my story from yesterday evening, and it's really good. Not my story. What I love here about, okay, can you please give me, thank you. I forgot that. First, you are Dyane.
I am Dyane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're Bob. Thank you for giving this workshop here. And of course, for your work, for preparing the workshop, you get a present. And I hope you had a great time here at the conference. And we will hear you very, very often on other workshops, places, or wherever in the world. So, thank you, and we'll all see you in the closing ceremony in about 15 minutes.
We have some story cards for you, small version as you walk out. Please help yourself.
Have cherry skull, everybody.